Hello and welcome back. Now we have all these beautiful Grux enemies. Thanks to the different skins, we have 7 different versions of Grux, which gives us a big diversity for our enemies in our game. But we'd also like to have different types of enemies as well. So in this video, we're going to add another character asset to our project so that we can reuse all of our work that we use for Grux with that new character asset. So let's go ahead and get started. Now here I have the Unreal Engine Marketplace and I've searched for Paragon, and in Paragon we have all these characters, and I'm going to go ahead and search for another character that uses melee weapons. Now I like this one. It's called Khaimera, and Khaimera uses 2 melee weapons just like Grux does. And Khaimera has several different skins as well. So this is perfect to reuse that code we created with our enemy class. So we can go ahead and add this to our project. I'm going to go ahead and download it and click Add to Project and select the shooter project that I've created. So there's my shooter project. I'm going to click Add to Project, and I'll give this a few minutes to add this asset to our project. Okay, so we've added Khaimera to our project, and we now have this Paragon Khaimera folder. And inside this folder, there are lots of different assets, as there are with all of these. And we have quite a few skins of Khaimera. There's the regular Khaimera, and then in the skins folder, there are 2 tiers. And tier 1 has 4 different skins, tier 2 has another skin. So we have quite a few assets to work with. Now I'd like to go into our enemies folder and duplicate one of these. Now rather than just duplicating enemy BP, I'm going to duplicate one of the Gruxes, because in the Grux blueprints, we've already deleted that extra health bar and replaced that node here in the event graph with the health bar that we need. And we've already created this parent call to begin play here. And we've also went to class settings and set the parent class to enemy BP, so everything's set up in these Grux duplicates. So I'm just going to duplicate one of my copies here. So I'm going to right click on Grux and duplicate. And for this one, I'm going to call it Khaimera. Now I'm going to open the Khaimera blueprint. So I'm going to take the mesh, and instead of Grux, I'm going to search for Khaimera and set this to Khaimera instead. So here is Khaimera, and as you can see, there are a few issues. For one, the left and right weapon collision boxes are not attached to the weapons, and that's because we're going to need to look at the skeleton and make sure that we have the correct sockets. Another issue is if we go to Khaimera self, we're using the hit montage, attack montage, death montage. These montages are the assets in the animations folder which use the Grux skeleton. So we need to actually create montages and in fact an entire animation blueprint for Khaimera itself. So we have a few adjustments to make. Let's go ahead and do that. For now, let's compile and save this. And we're going to want to go to the Khaimera mesh and browse to asset and take a look at the Khaimera skeleton here. So here's the Khaimera skeleton asset. And if we search for weapon, we'll see that we have weapon L and weapon R. Now it looks like weapon L has a couple of sockets called effects trail L O2 and O1. And if we select O2, it looks like O2 is at the tip here. Now, just to remind ourselves, let's take a look at the Grux skeleton. So here's Paragon Grux, characters, heroes, Grux, meshes, and Grux skeleton. Now I'm going to search for weapon, select weapon L, and here in weapon L, we have effects trail L, O1, and O2. Now if I select O1, O1 is here at the tip. But on Khaimera's skeleton, O2 is here at the tip, so there's an inconsistency here. This means we need to rename these sockets here on the Khaimera skeleton. Now we can swap these names pretty easily by taking the effects trail L01, copying that name, and changing it here, say adding an X at the end of it. And that way we can take this trail L02 and paste in trail L01. And because we changed this one's name, we won't have two sockets with the same name, so we're able to rename that. And we can rename this first one to Trail L02. So now we have effects Trail L01 at the tip and 02 at the base. We need to do this for the right weapon as well. So let's go to Weapon R, and here we have effects Trail R02 and 01. I'm going to copy the name for 01 and rename this one, put an X at the end, and now I'm going to replace the name for 02 with 01 and change the first one to 02. Just a good old-fashioned swap there. So now these have the correct names. Now let's go back to Grux skeleton and we'll notice a couple other things. Now on weapon L, we added a left weapon bone socket. This socket is what we use to attach our collision box. We also added a right weapon bone socket to weapon R. So let's go into Khaimera skeleton, and we're going to create a couple new sockets. For weapon L, we're going to add a new socket. So right click and add socket. We're going to call this left weapon bone. Now let's find weapon R, and we're going to add a socket to weapon R. And we're going to rename this socket to right weapon bone. And we can save that. Now, if we go back to the Khaimera blueprint, we'll see that the left weapon collision and right weapon collision are automatically positioned correctly. So that is fixed. So that takes care of that issue. And also our weapon trails will work properly as well. So we now need to create an animation blueprint for Khaimera. So let's go into our enemies folder. And I'm going to create a new folder for Grux and put all the Grux assets into it. So let's make a folder called Grux. And I'm going to take Grux, Grux Beetle Red, Grux Chestplate, Halloween, Molten, Killin, and War Chief, and move these all into the Grux folder. And once that's done, I'm going to right click and create a new folder called Khaimera. And I'm going to stick our new Khaimera enemy into the Khaimera folder. Now we have all of the different enemies in their own folders. Now we can create an animation blueprint for Khaimera. Let's right-click, go to Animation, and Animation Blueprint. Now we created a anim instance C++ class called Grux anim instance, and even though it has the Grux name in it, we can still use it for the Khaimera animation blueprint, as the anim instance does not depend on the Grux skeleton. So we can select Grux anim instance for the parent class, but for the skeleton, we're going to select Khaimera skeleton. Go ahead and hit OK, and we can call this Khaimera AnimBP. Now, in the next video, we're going to set up the Khaimera anim blueprint as well as all animation montages that we need for Khaimera. I'll see you in the next video.